This episode is brought to you by Progressive.
Are you driving your car or doing the laundry right now? Podcasts go best when they're bundled with another activity, like Progressive home and auto policies. They're best when bundled too.
Having these two policies together makes insurance easier and could help you save. Customers who save by switching their home and car insurance to Progressive save over $775 on average.
Quote a home and car bundle today at progressive.com.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $779 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2022 and May 2023. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states.
Welcome to the Intrazone, a show about the Microsoft 365 Intelligent Intranet. I'm Mark Cashman, here with my co-host Chris, who is bound to say something about sports that I won't even get, but it's his favorite thing to reference, McNulty.
Thanks so much, Mark. So we're recording today's episode before and after the NFL draft. It's definitely in my mind about figuring out how organizations can sift through lots of different pieces of data to be able to make intelligent decisions. And for those of you unfamiliar with football, as we call it in the United States, because that's what it is, the draft is a process every year by which teams get to pick new players. And they have to select them in order based on how badly they did the year before. So the worst team gets to pick first, and so on and so forth. And so there's lots of information that's out there, from video and documents and different reports that scouts have made and data that they're able to measure and interviews that they do. And so knowledge is a problem for that space, and knowledge is definitely an opportunity, we know, for our customers. So that's why today we're sitting down and we're talking with CJ Tan from our program management team. CJ oversees Viva Topics, and we're not talking to her about sports, but about the very present challenge that all of us work with, which is, how do I find and use knowledge and put it to action in my organizations?
And I know that she is a first-round draft pick. So if CJ on today's topic about topics, were to be picked up by any other team, we'd be in trouble. But fortunately, Microsoft grabbed her to the SharePoint team. And there's a whole history of a lot of things that CJ has done, a lot of focus on analytics, a lot of focus on now, of course, the back end and how everything goes into topics, and it's programmable in the sense of you can curate your content. So I'm really excited to learn where she is now. I think we've talked last with CJ, about a year ago, but in the context of all the things that the Project Cortex team is doing, really excited to get her take on topics at the general availability timeframe.
Plus, we have exciting visual news about the Intrazone. Mark, I think you're dying to share it with the audience. So
I am. This is something that even before you hear Chris and I speak, you may have seen this. You may have scratched your head and say, wait a minute, I thought I subscribed to the Intrazone. Is this the Intrazone? And now that you hear our voices, hopefully you're reassured. But we have put out a new logo. We have a new logo for the Intrazone, and we think it was time to just update our look and feel to align to some of the things that are coming out from Viva, certainly continuing to come out from SharePoint and the broader intranet that everything plugs into. But Chris, my first take when I look at the new logo is it's a little bit better for accessibility. We got some feedback that is sometimes a little hard to read, hard to see. So hopefully it's just really easy now to not only see the name, the Intrazone, but to pick it out of the lineup when you're scrolling through your feed of different options and listening to your various podcasts. I want to ask your take on it. The one thing I'll just say is, if you squint at it and you look at those nice teal lines that connect everything, that's SharePoint. SharePoint is still there. But what's your take on the new logo?
I like it. It is a little bit of dark mode, which as an Apple user, I've come to appreciate a lot, especially when I'm reading my phone late at night and around people who should be asleep. But it's colorful, it's connected, I think it's clean. It feels very of now. It's very 20s, if I can say that.
I think the word you said really hopefully was something that went into the design, that it was connected. We always talk about the Microsoft 365 Intelligent Intranet. There's so many parts and pieces, whether they're features, whether they are updates that you should know about, or broader projects, products, and applications. And they're representative. This is what Microsoft offers for the intelligent internet. We cover a lot of topics, speak to a lot of people, but it's that connected tissue where there really are a ton of integration points. We hope a great end user experience when you're using the service. And we hope when you listen to the podcast that you have a connected experience where it actually all makes sense, or as we reveal certain things at different points in times, that it feels connected to the conversation that we want to have as an ongoing intrazone conversation from Microsoft out to the world.
This is sort of like what we can do, I think, for the non-fungible token part of the world, because now if you are the owner of a vintage intrazone belt, it's now a collector's item.
Oh, you just reminded me. I got to put a to-do task for myself. New swag.
I wonder if we should hop on the bandwagon and do a charity auction of an NFT version of the intrazone logo.
Ooh, interesting.
But I love the fact that we are essentially discussing graphics in an audio program. And I say that with the full knowledge that I have dabbled in photography for a while. And the first photo I ever sold was to National Public Radio.
Really?
Yes.
And they're touting these days that they're celebrating their 50th anniversary.
It is their 50th anniversary. This was about 10 years ago. And of course, when they called me through the agency that arranges these things and said they'd like to license it, I'm like, I do want to ask, why is a radio program licensing an image? Like, oh, it's for the blog. And do you know what the picture was? It is so appropriate given the way I tease you on the show.
I'm guessing some sports show episode that they had.
It was my photo of Tom Brady throwing a pass with a rainbow behind it. Anyway, enough about sports, enough about logos.
Yeah, let's take a little bit of a left turn, get back on topic. And before we talk with CJ, just for maybe a couple of minutes, it's a very exciting time for Viva. It's a very exciting time for this particular module rolling into general availability. Before we dive into the technology and some of the stories that she has of where we are now and where we're going, from a marketing perspective, what's our outreach look like right now for topics, and maybe some early mind share, whether they're direct quotes or just ideas and concepts of how people are starting to look at and maybe even use topics.
Mark, that's a really great question. We've been working, as you know, with a number of customers at this point for close to 2 years with our preview program. And now we're seeing some customers who are finally getting to experience Topic through trials, through purchases. And there are lots of things that we've heard. I'd say probably the most important one to me is customers saying in various ways, wow, we turned Topics on and we discovered we have 10,000, 20,000, 60,000 topics. So it's really impressive to be able to see the tech coalesce so much information that we thought was there and never had. It's sort of like shining a light on all of the dark matter in the universe at once. The other set of questions that we get are about the practical side, the planning and rollout. What do we need to start with to get a good initial experience with Topics, for one? And two, we love everything we've seen and we want more. Please tell us what's top of mind for you as you think about the next year of Viva Topics. And fortunately, I think those are things we're going to be getting a lot of insight from CJ on.
Great. I think the team, has done a ton of diligence throughout all of what we would call the rings of release, working with early adopters at Microsoft. I see topics more and more popping up in my email and some highlights in SharePoint pages. So the reality is there. These are real things. I even kind of tested it the other day to see how well the AI was doing. I clicked in when I typed the words Microsoft lists. And of course, I saw my peers. And if I scrolled a little bit, I saw myself associated to the topic, which, yay, I made it into Topics. But it's really great to see real use, to hear the feedback and to know the team is now, moving beyond what was those grand, pretty momentous deliverables of just getting Topics to GA to now moving to refining based on feedback, thinking about what's next. But what I really like, and I really will just let the conversation with CJ speak for itself, is what is her take on how we're doing technically at general availability? What's the approach that we're seeing from deployment? This use and adoption phase, great phase to be in from an engineer's perspective, but to really see on those best practices that we can isolate and identify for people to kind of think about and lock into, and of course a lot of new resources to highlight. So I think with that, Chris, it's going to be a conversation with you and CJ, because you collectively own as a product marketing manager, director, topics, but it'll be really great to hear this technology behind. So let's take a moment and hear from CJ all about Microsoft Viva Topics.
So today on the IntraZone, Mark and I are welcoming back longtime friend of this program, CJ Tin. CJ, you're the principal program manager for Viva Topics, so welcome back.
Thank you.
I know our audience hangs on every broadcast and everything, but could you just start by introducing yourself a little bit to talk about how did you come to start working at Microsoft? What have you been working on up until today?
So I came to Microsoft from a customer relationship management company in Vancouver, British Columbia in Canada. And I started actually in what was an MSN video team, working with that team to program the site and build the tools that the editorial team needed to get that going. Then I came into OneDrive and worked with the team there on some engineering processes, and with their photos strategy is really where I started to get into the consumer space and really understanding files in the cloud and OneDrive all up. And then moved to SharePoint. And from a SharePoint perspective, I was really starting to get into things that could make work easier, more productive, filing through information. You may remember that I was on this show earlier for file cards, bringing that, the information and the activity of a file to your fingertips as you were interacting with files on OneDrive and SharePoint. And then I started on Viva Topics, where this need that we've all seen with organizing and summary and just understanding the amount of information that's been created in an organization. And that's really what led me to my interest in Viva Topics and Project Cortex and the items and capabilities that we're releasing now.
I have always thought of those on-hover experiences, now of which we've got a number of them in the system. We've got for people, we've got for files, and of course with topics, it's kind of taking it to the next level. And as a user, what I've always liked about it is there's only so much real estate on a page, but there's also a lot of interest in somebody's brain when they're reviewing something, or there are questions of things that maybe, you can't just put 8 pages to keep scrolling, but in the context, when you see something, you hover over it and you can learn more. And I really appreciate the work that you've done with files. That has helped a lot before I open the file, before I commit to it. And I think with topics, it's kind of taking that same vein, but really taking it to the next level of discovery or learning more. But again, I think it's those two pivots of an interest. I'm drawn to something, or there's a question that I have. So it's nice to see the kind of on-hover experiences continue. But there's a lot more, and I think we'll unpack that completely.
So CJ, absolutely, it's great to hear how your career path led you to what was previously the high point of your career, which was in July 2020, coming on the IntraZone with Sean Squires to talk about what was at the time Project Cortex. But now we're in 2021, we're ascending new heights. I say this tongue in cheek, but we've obviously watched a lot of accomplishments come from you and from your team over the past year. But what's been top of mind for the Cortex team, kind of thinking since last July? What's changed, what's advanced, and so forth?
I think one of the main things that has really changed from July is just this ability for us to be working with these set of preview customers that we were working with at the time and understanding their processes and figuring out really what was this first cut or this first release that we would go out. So as you can imagine with any software or any project you work on, there especially when it's date driven, there are things that you just want to get right. The scope actually gets reduced. And with the announcement of everything that came out in February, I think what's been really great is now getting additional sort of that the crowd is coming in and letting us know and giving us more feedback around, what are the priorities that we need to actually focus on? What were the things that we decided previously that we thought could wait, and that now we have a lot more signal that we can go in and build out more capabilities, give people more information or more capabilities. And that actually has been a really great moment as far as top of mind, having the participation of even more people. I mean, the preview program was so valuable in really defining that first version, but now we just get even more information and what people are saying and how people are using it as well.
And also, I mean, since then, I'm asking you a question. Obviously, I'm on the team as well. Cortex has become 2 products. One is SharePoint Syntex, which we've spoken about with Sean previously. And now we have Viva Topics, which is aligned to our new employee experience brand. How has that shift in packaging really affected how you think about delivering value for customers?
I think it's really more about how we still, like Sean and I still feel these 2 products are partners in this quest to organize knowledge and organize your content and bring you actually knowledge out of that. And I still think that is true. I still see that as Syntex being able to give us the rich metadata that topics can now go and use and be actually more relevant in how we group the things together. So I do still feel like those things are together. What has been really great is that as the 2 products have taken on different use cases, I'm actually finding that from the topics perspective, I get to learn a lot more richer information about what Syntex is able to do. With that still same line of seeing that there's a lot of use cases that I'm seeing from topics customers that I could pull in the work that Sean's been doing as well on Syntex.
One of the things that from just a flow of the interzone, if we can think about it from episode to episode, and the through line being, learning about Cortex and then learning about Syntex and then, learning at a broad level about the new Viva brand and all of the 4 modules. The last perspective I think that our audience heard was from Naomi Moneypenny when you started to truly release, when you said in February, rolling out Topics GA, people actually starting beyond the early adopters. So when you think of a customer who is starting to adopt and they understand what Topics is, they understand what they'd like to accomplish, at that 100 or 200 level, I think is where we're at. If we can take the conversation and start to move it into that 300 level, at least from a planning perspective, how do you start to define getting customer aware of what the different roles are, how they can automate some of the processes and work hand in hand with Topics? And maybe get into some of the deeper levels of what people should know from a deployment perspective.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that we've been learning with the early adopters as well as the new customers that are coming in is that it's really important upfront to understand and get comfortable with the topics that AI is actually discovering. And I think what's key to that is understanding who you should involve right from the front that will be able to help you or help an IT group or whoever's evaluating it to understand what are the topics that are coming in and whether or not that business organization actually feels that they're going to be valuable, like there's an application for that and solving a problem that they may already have. So for example, like if you are in a sales organization and you know that there's a lot of projects or sales projects that you've been working on, and you start out with the configuration of topics to really target a set, all the SharePoint sites, all that SharePoint information that a sales organization is looking at. Then you engage sort of the business owners from that. And when you see that output of those AI discovered topics, have someone that can actually say, hey, project A, that's actually really, really great. It's actually found, the people that I expected it to. It's got this definition or description that's been extracted that makes sense, describes what we're trying to do there. And these documents that it found actually make sense. So it's one of those things where given the amount of data or the amount of content that we're actually discovering across, you will get a high number of topics. So it's important to really identify the key people that can look at, let's say 10 or 20 of these topics and say, yeah, this has value. I can see where it had a decent start and I may want to engage, a few more people to edit it or to contribute to it. But this is information, one, that we want to share, right? Because initially when it's discovered, it's sort of just in that group of people that can see it. So first we want to share it and then recognize that maybe it could be shared immediately as it is, as the way that AI discovered, or maybe it just needs a little bit more help from a person that is closer to that topic to edit that. So I think having that purposeful use case for a group of people or a department is really helpful in trying to gauge what is that initial set of topics that you see. And then as you see how well or maybe how much work that the AI discovers, then you can go forward and make decisions on, how many people can we open this up to? Maybe that gives you a comfort level of that as well. That's sort of a place where I think that's really worked in organizations where they are comfortable with first sharing a lot more of this information and then just going through a few of these topics and seeing what the AI is actually discovering.
I have one quick follow-up. When you think about those roles, does this define a new type of role that our customers should consider? Or does it fit into kind of a common role that exists and they're now learning, a new technology or a new way of using technology?
I think that it can go both ways. Like there are organizations that are further along in sort of this knowledge management process where they already have, or they may already have people that are designated to organize or designated to be sort of guiding how knowledge is shared across the organization. Like we call them roles, but it's really like this person that's the knowledge manager. Some organizations actually may already have somebody that's already doing that. What we've seen as well, though, is that there are organizations that are starting to recognize that they need this in their organization to manage their the amount of content they have, and may not be as further along in this process. So in that case, it could be a new person that recognizes that this is a need for the organization and is stepping up to say, I care about how this knowledge is represented. I can go and identify the people that are able to help with that process, and that could actually be a new role.
Mark, I think it's a great topic, and I do think one of the things that we kind of saw throughout the preview program is in the initial days, customers can be conservative and they would say, hey, we're going to start using this with like 50 documents and 2 users. And Viva Topics, to be fair, isn't really designed to scale to that subatomic particle level. It's designed to look at millions or billions of documents and find things. And so many organizations who have taken the plunge turn Viva Topics on broadly across the organization. And there's a moment that's sort of akin to, if you remember the 1968 film 2001, when the astronaut David Bowman is approaching the monolith out in space and he looks into it and like his last words are, oh my God, it's full of stars. Many of our customers have had that same moment where they're like, hey, let's turn this on and see, we have 23,000 topics. We have 68,000 topics in the organization. And some organizations do have a discipline that is looking at, these are the key subjects that we want people to know about. Here's how we think of them in an ontology and how they fit together, that we want people to be thinking about. Do you think about individual customers or sets of customers or products or sets of products? And having that collective mind mapping, even if it's being done on a virtualized whiteboard, moving into it is helpful. There are people who definitely have that as a discipline in companies, and there's people who are doing it without realizing they're doing it. And Viva Topics is going to amplify their importance to that organization.
I think the next follow-up question from a role perspective, we know there are knowledge managers or not, and that's going to be a key individual or set of individuals to take on really rolling out topics and managing it and working in concert with the AI. The other role that I think always pops up, and it seems to kind of revolve around, any new higher end back-end content service for SharePoint or Microsoft 365, and that is the role of the security officer or the security review team. Anybody concerned with privacy, compliance, governance. How do you approach that in not only just backing up what the product does and alleviating some of their concerns, but when somebody is looking at that just from broader engagement and use of this technology from a full rollout deployment? What are some of those things that we can suggest or articulate around security and privacy when it comes to topics?
Well, I think the main thing to remember is that we are built on all the existing M365 security aspects. So what that means is that, those things that you've said search doesn't index or search doesn't know about, topics don't know about. All that security that's in place around who has permissions or access to the documents, these topics are based on that, and the topics are filtered to what the individual sees. So there isn't anything new from that pattern of how you're securing the information now that needs to change. On top of that, the controls that you have for topic discovery are really around what is the content that you want us to be looking at as far as the SharePoint sites. So whether or not you give us access to everything and exclude a few, or decide that you're going to exclude more and just give us access to a few items, those are all within that control as well. And then there's always going to be topics that you just don't think are appropriate to identify and basically surface to more of the organization to see. So we do provide mechanisms for you to give us that list of names or topics, strings that just don't get identified as those topics. So we do really want to give people that flexibility. And as far as what we're working on, we want to continue to build on top of what is already available. So things like the sensitivity labels on files, those are upcoming features that we know we're just going to continue building on the same patterns that the security officers already use, and then just carry that forward to how topic discovery works as well. So that sensitivity label one is actually just one example of that.
I know we all talk to lots of customers, both in preview and now that we're out in the market, to lots more customers that are interested in learning more about Viva Topics. But what are some of the most common questions that you find yourself answering over and again when you talk to customers? We spoke about security, but we'd love to get some of your thoughts on other subjects that are near and dear to their hearts.
Yeah, I think one of the most common questions is, how can I really manage these number of topics that we found for you? In a lot of organizations, this could be up to tens of thousands of topics. Feels really overwhelming when a knowledge manager that's got permissions to a lot of things in order to evaluate these items. And I think that the approach that I've seen that can work for organizations, especially building on knowing that these AI discovered topics are already protected or secure based on the underlying content permissions, is to actually invite more of the organization to see those topics and to experience the end user experiences around those topics. Because what that allows it to do is that for the system to start to tell you and collect analytics around where do these topics actually show up across your SharePoint interface, across Microsoft Search, what are people actually looking for as far as topics, and starts to give you information into how many impressions, how many times these topics are showing up across your organization. And so then with this, that you'll get two pieces of information. One, how frequently these topics are shown, so that you can actually go into your dashboard and actually sort by that and see what are the topics that I think need some attention from this AI. And then second, as these topics are being shown to more people, we are able to ask them questions on that topic card itself and get their feedback on each of those topics. So that what that allows you to do is start to get a sense of people who are actually close to that topic, people who know about it can actually give you feedback. As you open it up to more people, we do have a place where in the topic center where you can go and see where the AI has actually connected you closely to a topic and then give feedback there. So I think it starts to be really critical to understand that with the security measures that are already in place, as far as topics being only available to a person when they have permissions to the underlying content, it means that you can start engaging more of these people and letting them tell you what are the important topics, because then you can go back to your dashboard and see, what is the information that people are seeing on these topics, how much information they're seeing. So we've got that quality column, and how frequently it happens. And now you've got a way to sort that and see which topics maybe do need to be curated, maybe do need to find, like somebody who can validate and really see what that information is, how that information could be made more valuable to the people seeing it.
CJ, when you think about our most successful customers in the preview program or beyond it, in talking to them, what are some of the most common scenarios where they have applied the Viva Topics technology to their own organizations?
Yeah, so one of the things that I have noticed as a common user scenario is that there are organizations that already are sort of building what you could see could be topics for their organization. So say a page around a program, or resources around a program. And what the use case I see there is that now we've given them the ability to start using topics, being able to identify where these resources are and actually connect them, so that people can actually see the relationship between different programs or different projects. So for example, like they might have a site that starts with program A, and within that they can start connecting it and bringing up highlights for other projects that they talk about, other places where things are connected. And then this allows them to actually build an experience that might start at one project and then lead that viewer into these other pieces of information and knowledge in other projects that are very related. Because we've got this mechanism where you can highlight things, you can designate topics to be highlighted in place, and then you can start following this, rabbit hole, for lack of a better word, of learning about all the things that are connected in one place. So we've really been able to see people who have already sort of built some infrastructure that started looking at topic pages, and now we've been able to connect them much more closely to each other and build more awareness around discovery of the things that are related to one particular place.
Terrific. I know that customers are also eager for us to push topics into more and more areas. As you kind of think forward over the next 6 to 12 months, what are some of the top of mind areas that you're hoping to tackle inside of the product?
Yeah, there's really three things that are really resonate with me as far as top of mind is one is really around giving more analytics around the topic discovery, around the system all up. And I think this really comes to demonstrating the value of, sort of your world before you had topics and your world after topics. What are the things that have changed as far as the way that knowledge is shared? So analytics is really top of mind for me right now. And then this ability for us to actually scale this management of topics to organizations that actually have a lot of topics. What are the tools and mechanisms and capabilities we would give you in order to make it easier for you to understand, how the AI is working, that quality, and encourage you to invite the right people to help you manage that. So that's another area. And then the third is really multilingual. I mean, it's really, and part of this is really just around not just that we want the AI to be able to work across different languages, right? Like to be able to extract topics out of content of different languages. It's exciting in that we can build this knowledge base that it's actually pulling content together from different languages. It's not in that now you've got even more rich information so that we can add to this knowledge base. So those are really the top three things that I think are exciting coming on our roadmap.
I have thought from the beginning that the Project Cortex roadmap, from everything that I was aware of, and then when we started to go public, was broad and deep and had a lot of exciting things that were going to come and really up-level the SharePoint experience and up-level, people's experiences in Teams and email and whatnot. And to hear that there, of course, is a solid roadmap and a backlog of things that you're interested in and that customers want to take it even further, I think it's really nice to hear the roadmap. And of course, when you think of a customer truly adopting at scale, they're going to then want, I think, a lot of those tools you just explained. So it sounds like the right approach and very exciting for our customers. If somebody wanted to get a little bit more in depth with training or up-leveling themselves about topics, awareness of the Resource Center, I think, is already out there. I know that the team has also recently developed a couple of new learning paths on docs.microsoft.com. Can you just share a little bit of what people can expect? I'll put links in the show notes and obviously have them in the blog, and what people can expect when they start to take them.
Yeah, so the learning path is really walking you through understanding what topics are, how the discovery works, and then walking you through the deployment so you can get started really easily. So they're really step-by-step guides for understanding how topics works.
I want to tell you, I took the Getting Started with Microsoft Viva Topics. I gained, I think, 600 points on docs.microsoft.com. So I feel like I could at least keep up with you and Chris today. But I'll certainly look to get a few more points. I am like getting the pellet from the cage. I will keep pressing the button and get my points going up. CJ, on behalf of the Interzone, our audience, and to compliment, I think, all that you and the team are doing, thank you for being on the Interzone. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and expertise, literally, about knowledge and expertise.
CJ, once again, great to have you here in the Interzone. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Chris. I really enjoyed my time today.
Up next on the Interzone, events. If there's an event going on around the world that's tied to Microsoft 365, we want to feature it here on the Intrazone. So coming up next, Teams Nation on May 12th. This is a full day multi-track event. It is all about, wait for it, Teams. 100% free, 100% community driven, again, dedicated to Teams. 11 tracks, 114 sessions. You can choose the Teams conference you always wanted. It's really a choose your own adventure by being able to choose a track like adoption or governance or picking different sessions across multiple tracks.
And you may have gotten a sense of a little bit of Teams development, but if you want to go really broad, the next event that we want to highlight is Microsoft Build, and this is for developers, as our friend Steve Ballmer might have once said. So May 25th to 27th, if you're a developer and you want to learn all about what's going on with the broader platform approach, there will be drill-in sessions for SharePoint Framework, Microsoft Graph. Certainly, there will be focus on how you think about Viva and Teams as a platform to build and customize and extend. But if you're a developer and you want to know what Microsoft is offering with tools, services, and apps from a developer's perspective, Microsoft Build, May 25th to the 27th.
1 week later, across the pond, ESPC 21, June 1st to 2nd, the European SharePoint Conference. But of course, that event has grown throughout the years to cover the broad range of Microsoft 365 and Azure solutions across the Microsoft 365 cloud. And since it is not actually in Europe this year, it is everywhere. So you can plug in to experience Jeff Teeper's keynote with multiple sessions from Microsoft staff, as well as MVPs, lots of workshops to help you go deep.
And either get a ton more or a little bit more focused on potentially being in person. Not everybody has to be in person, but there's the first hybrid event that we're aware of that's coming back online. This will be in Orlando, Florida, June 8th to the 10th. It is the Microsoft 365 Collaboration Summit. There's a lot of activity that will be happening there on site. There are a number of Microsoft sessions that will be delivered virtually. You can expect a keynote from our friend and peer Dan Holm. And there's also a Scott Guthrie keynote focused on all things Power Platform. So a lot of content. If you are in the area or you want to travel for an in-person event and you are doing it in a safe way and you feel comfortable about that, June 8th to the 10th, a nice hybrid event in Orlando, Florida.
It's great to see that pivot to something that's going to feel a little bit more normal, Mark. You know, I know you and I were chatting earlier. I don't think we're ready to share all of the details, but as we get post-summer, I'm starting to have to think about getting on those big, shiny silver things that soar through the air to go to some events. I know you and I are talking about doing a joint keynote at a city to be named later.
Yes. Yeah, I'm excited. I was a little jealous. Obviously, a lot of people making progress on getting their first and second dose. And officially today, I'm really pleased, even though it'll be different than when this goes live. But while we're recording, this is my day, Chris, to get shot number 1.
Are you doing it live on the air?
I will be not doing it live. I may tweet out my vaxie, just like everybody else is doing. Very exciting to think about being in person at times throughout the year coming up soon.
A live intrazone vaccination would be quite the event. But if you have a similar event or something else going on across this great ecosystem, please let us know. We would love to feature it on a future episode of the Intrazone. Well, we've done it. You've wasted another perfectly good hour listening to Mark and I talk to someone far more knowledgeable than I am. But we really would like to thank CJ for coming in to share her wisdom and insight about Viva Topics today and tomorrow. We'll put links to all the things we talked about today and more, including potentially a photo of a certain football player, into the show notes and the Intrazone blog.
You can check out our show page anytime at aka.ms/theintrazone.
And if you're curious about other Microsoft programming, check out aka.ms/Microsoft/podcasts as well.
You can email us anytime you have a great first round draft pick like CJ that you want to promote to us, or you have a topic or a feature or something you'd like us to focus on, please email us at theintrazone@microsoft.com or chase us down on Twitter @SharePoint, @mcashman, and @cmcnulty2000.
Word of mouth is still the best way people learn about podcasts. So if you enjoy this show, help us help more people. share that SharePoint love, and subscribe by that shiny new IntraZone billboard out on Highway 105 or wherever you get your podcasts.
I had no idea our funding was so massive to get that billboard.
And I have no idea where Highway 105 even is.
With that, we are your hosts, Mark Cashman and Chris McNulty, the two guys behind that cool new dark mode logo. And you've been listening to The IntraZone, a show about the Microsoft 365 topics everywhere, intelligent intranet.
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. Recently, I asked Mint Mobile's legal team if big wireless companies are allowed to raise prices due to inflation. They said yes. And then when I asked if raising prices technically violates those onerous 2-year contracts, they said, "What the f*** are you talking about, you insane Hollywood ass?" So to recap, we're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.